And the Prince and Princess of Wales have welcomed the Emir of Qatar as they begin their two-day state visit to the UK.
Yes, we're looking at live shots here of them all as we prepare for a carriage procession to Buckingham Palace, where our royal correspondent Cameron Walker is to tell us more. Cameron, so what's on the agenda today then?
Good afternoon, even, Emily and Tom. Yes, well, the Prince and Princess of Wales have now officially greeted the Emir of Qatar and his first wife at their private residence in London. We should be able to bring you those first images of the Prince and Princess of Wales in London there. The Princess wearing a coat by Sarah Burton for Alexander McQueen and a hat by Saha Minilary, and Her Royal Highness also wearing jewellery which used to belong to the late Queen Elizabeth II, so quite poignant for Her Royal Highness there. And then they're going to be travelling to Horse Guards Parade, where they'll be arriving very, very shortly indeed. We may also be able to bring you live shots from Horse Guards Parade, where His Majesty the King is stood on the dais ahead of the Emir's arrival. It is, of course, his role as head of state to welcome the visiting head of state, and it's on the advice of the Foreign Office that the King has invited the Emir to London today, and of course two-day state visit, because it's happening today and tomorrow, because it is all about strengthening those relations between the two countries. Now, of course, there is some controversy around Qatar being invited with alleged human rights abuses and all the rest of it, but that's not the King's role. The King's role is soft power, soft diplomacy, and basically putting on a big show and putting on the best of brand Britain, which is why we have all this military pomp and pageantry that we would perhaps expect with a proceeding such as this. We can just see there on your screens the King, I believe, greeting the Emir and his wife there on the dais. I just caught a glimpse of the Prince of Wales and the Princess of Wales there as well. What we're going to expect now is the 1st Battalion Welsh Guards to form a guard of honour. The Emir greeting Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer there, David Lammy as well, the Foreign Secretary. I believe the Home Secretary should also be there, although I can't quite see her on my screen. Hopefully she is there. I believe, there we go, a handshake. So we're going to be seeing the 1st Battalion Welsh Guard, as I said, forming a guard of honour. The national anthem will also play, and then, of course, the carriage procession back up the Mall to Buckingham Palace for a private lunch. There is one noticeable absence here, though, and that is Her Majesty the Queen, who originally was expected to be here for the official welcome ceremony here at Horse Guards Parade. But very late last night, Buckingham Palace announced that the Queen would not be there, and that is on health grounds. She's had kind of this lingering chest infection, or symptoms of a lingering chest infection, for around a month, and from my understanding it's her energy levels which are really the problem here. So the Queen not taking part in either the ceremonial welcome, which we're seeing happening now, or indeed the carriage procession up to Buckingham Palace, but no cause for big alarm, because she is taking part in the state banquet later on, and she'll be at the private lunch and the viewing of the royal collection items in the picture gallery to do with Qatar. So she's doing some of it, but it's very much being done on a case-by-case basis and mindful of her energy levels. But this is pomp and pageantry in action. The Emir and his wife meeting members of the British government, members of the armed forces as well, strengthening those two relations. We also saw that shot, didn't we? That beautiful shot down the Mall, around a mile long. Union flags on one side, and Union flags on a side, and also the Qatari flag as well. We've got another guard of honour at Buckingham Palace waiting for their arrival as well. So hopefully it should be a really good trip for the Emir, who has a very close bond with Great Britain as well, because he went to 2 public schools here when he was younger. He's 44 years old, so close to Prince William's age, but he went to Harrow, actually, so the rival of Eton, where Prince William went, as well as Sherborne School, and graduated from the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, so he has had that best of British military training too.
It is fantastic to see everyone dressed up in their ceremonial outfits. We saw the Lord High Chancellor, as well as a number of military figures there as well. But Cameron, this is not a visit that doesn't come without controversy. Of course, huge concern over some of the human rights abuses in Qatar, and the fact that leaders of Hamas have been living there too. How does that all balance with the smiles and graces today?
Yeah, it certainly is perhaps slightly uncomfortable, Tom, for many. Of course, Qatar is an absolute monarchy, so the Emir does have the complete power in terms of legislative or executive powers in that country. So completely different to King Charles, who, of course, is a constitutional monarch and takes his advice from the government. And it's actually the government you need to ask questions about here, because King Charles obviously only takes advice and, on the advice of the Foreign Office, would invite the visiting head of state to come to Buckingham Palace for a big state occasion of pomp and pageantry. So King Charles will very much be focused on his power of soft diplomacy here, putting on a show, being the best host he possibly can be, and not getting involved in any of those political or contentious issues. But as you say, it is very much, Tom, kind of on a bit of a back burner here. It is very much in people's minds, particularly perhaps for government ministers who are trying to shore up the relations between Qatar and the United Kingdom. The Emir is also expected to visit the Palace of Westminster later on this afternoon, as well as Westminster Abbey. He is expected to speak to a number of politicians inside the Palace of Westminster. I believe it's inside Westminster Hall. I believe the national anthem is currently playing, so I'll stay silent for now.
Well, let's see if we can hear that national anthem. I think we might not have that microphone there, but we
okay,
can
Tom, I can keep talking if you need me to.
We can certainly see the dignitaries and leaders standing to attention there.
Absolutely, Tom, and of course this is a very posh dais, let's say, that's been set up with the Union flag and Qatar flag. We can just see that Guard of Honour that I was talking about earlier, 1st Battalion Welsh Guards, giving a royal salute to the visiting head of state here. And Prince William, of course, is their royal colonel too. And I believe this is probably one of the last ceremonial roles that the Welsh Guards are going to be having, because they will be back on active deployments, because, of course, all of these household division soldiers are working, serving soldiers. So they do go out on deployment abroad and, of course, in the United Kingdom too, training in the military for combat potentially. So instead of just the ceremonial stuff, this, as I said, this is going to be the last time they do so, and then another battalion of a household division will take over. The King and the Emir just walking down towards the 1st Battalion Welsh Guards. They're going to be inspecting that Guard of Honour, as is custom. The King walking behind the foreign head of state, the Emir of Qatar. Again, that is custom. There was a bit of controversy, if you remember, a couple of years ago, Tom and Emily, when the then president, almost to be president again, Donald Trump, walked in front of the late Queen Elizabeth during the state visit at Windsor Castle, which caused a bit of a hoo-ha. But from my understanding, it is actually custom perhaps for the visiting head of state to walk in front, because of course he is being hosted by King Charles in this instance. And both King Charles and indeed the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim, they are both very well versed in the precisions of what should and shouldn't be happening in a military parade. Both, of course, trained in the British military, as I said, Sandhurst for the Emir. So he'll be making sure that all the 1st Battalion Welsh Guards soldiers are looking spick and span in their role as pomp and pageantry of the best of British military welcome that they can possibly have during this ceremonial welcome. We're not expecting this to go on for too much longer, to be honest. It's a very short ceremonial welcome, because then there's going to be a big carriage procession up the Mall to Buckingham Palace for a private lunch. But of course, this is the Emir of Qatar being front and centre stage here in the United Kingdom, with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom standing to attention alongside the Foreign Secretary and Home Secretary too. So it is quite a scene, to be honest.
And Cameron, we saw a little bit earlier the Princess of Wales looking typically dignified and poised and beautifully dressed. This is her first appearance at a state visit since her cancer diagnosis. Were we expecting her to play such a role?
Yes, Emily, this is the first state visit she's taken part in since her cancer diagnosis, as you say. And I think what was a positive sign is that we were given advance notice that the Princess would be taking part in this. We got around a week's notice. If you remember, in those days, very soon after her preventative chemotherapy, the guidance we were getting was that we wouldn't really find out if the Princess would be doing an engagement until the day itself, because they weren't sure if she was going to have a good day or a bad day in terms of her energy levels and her health. health, but the fact they gave us notice suggests that she is very much on the road to recovery. But there is certainly still a note of caution here, because the Princess will not be taking part in that state banquet tonight at Buckingham Palace. She is only taking part in this, the ceremonial welcome, and indeed the procession up the Mall to Buckingham Palace and the private lunch and the viewing of the pictures, because the Princess has a very busy week ahead. She'll be hosting her carol service at Westminster Abbey on Friday, and a source very close to the Princess told me this morning that she is involved in every aspect of the preparations for that.
Guard of honor. No! Out! Out go cavalry!
There we have it. Thanks a lot to Cameron Walker, who was joining us there outside Buckingham Palace. Here we're on Horse Guards parades, just watching the King and the Emir of Qatar inspect the 1st Battalion Welsh Guards.